wider internet to this very special session that we've organised. So, hello, good evening. Paul Nolan here from MYT. You probably know that already. Thanks for tuning in, whether you're on YouTube, whether you are on Facebook. Thank you very much for watching. And yes, we're doing this very special free track feedback session. So I wanted to do this. I've been wanting to do this for a while. And what I wanted to do is give people a little bit of a flavour of what our MYT AAA members get as part of their subscription, as part of their membership. And, you know, obviously we're celebrating our 4th birthday at the moment. As you can see, the link is just down there for the 4th birthday sale, which is 50% off all memberships at the moment, 6 and 12 months. And, you know, we wanted to just show people what it is that we actually do and give people a little bit of a benefit and help people with their productions as well as part of the celebrations. So we have a few tracks to go through tonight. And I'm already seeing some of our AAA members, like Julia, hello Julia, like the incredibly talented Dennis Veres, and our former member, Nick Van Lochem. Good to see you, Nick. Hello there. In the YouTube, and just having a look and seeing, shall we say, what they're up against, which is going to be really cool to see. Hello there, Ethos. Great to have you join us. So yeah, just quickly before we dive into the music, not to take up too much more time, but if you just head over to transition.studio, as we are right here, we can obviously have a little bit of a look as to how the membership works. There's a full explanation and some really amazing success stories. We've helped people get signed to record labels like Bedrock, Dynamic, Afterlife, We Are the Brave, Mousetrap, you name it. Some of the biggest labels in dance music, Running Back, Traum recently as well. And we're also starting our own record label, which the first release is coming very soon. And it's just a great time to join. Great time to join as a member. So we are 50% off through the end of the month. It's our once a year sale. We don't normally do another sale in the rest of the year. So if you fancy joining us and you like what you see tonight, then you know what to do. Head over to transition.studio. Right, now I've got the sales bit out the way, we can head over and we can start talking to our lovely people this evening. So I'm just gonna pop a few things away here for a second, and we're gonna just change over and say hello to our lovely guys this evening. Right, there you go. We've got Moon Motel, Abraham there. We've got Musk. We've got Sean. We've We've got Iner, Dimitar, and we've got Maro. Unfortunately, Gary, I don't think, got the email, but we'll listen to his track anyway and give him some feedback anyway. So, yes, this should be good fun. And, yeah, we are going to have a listen to each person's track. We're going to give some feedback. And the way that we do it is if I just share the screen here, I'm going to bring Logic Pro up again. And we use this plugin, this fantastic plugin from Metric AB, should I say, from Adapter Audio, called Metric AB, and it's one of our favorites. We do all of our AB comparisons and all of our feedback streams using this particular plugin, and it's one of the cornerstones from our friends and partners at Plugin Alliance. And hello to Andre and the team there. And yeah, they've been long-time supporters of MYT. And yeah, this is a fantastic plugin. If you don't use it to reference your mixdowns and reference your technicals and everything else, even down to your arrangements, you're definitely missing out. So with that being said, and I'm just putting everything in place so everybody can see properly. So we're almost there. We're almost there. Okay, so I think we're going to start proceedings tonight with Dimitar's track, which is this one here. So what we'll do is we'll hit play. You guys will be able to hear it on Audio Movers. That's another platform we use for high quality audio streaming, and you'll be able to hear it on the stream as well. So we will fade this in and we'll listen to Dimitar's track, and then we'll have a little word and we'll see what feedback we've got for them. So here we go. beautiful start to the evening. Although Dimitar can't currently hear it for some reason, which we'll get to the bottom of. But I'm sure you know what your own track sounds like, dude, because you've probably heard it enough, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm hearing now, so no problem. I guess it's some problem on my end, so it's okay. No problem. Thank you.
All good, dude. All good. Thanks for putting the track in, dude. It's a really great track. Really enjoyed the vocal, even though you mentioned in the email you were a bit like, oh yeah, you know, it's a person from your country and it's not sung in English. Not a problem at all, man. The vocal performance is really beautiful, and one of the things that I really enjoyed was the fact that you've managed to sit the vocal on top of the track really, really well. Like, it feels like it's meant to be in the track. Like, it feels like it's meant to sit where it's sitting. And getting vocals to sit properly is one of the hardest things that you can do in music production, as far as I'm concerned. It's something that causes me a lot of problems even now. And, you know, it's a very, very difficult thing to do. So congratulations for that. I think it's really, really well done.
Thank you.
Really well done.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
No, absolutely. And you mentioned that the track it feels pretty much done, right? It feels like you've pretty much at the finish line with it, right?
Yeah, it's maybe I need to add a little bit more like elements and source of it, so you know, maybe for a better vibe, or you know, just to getting a bit of a better flavor. But it's nearly done, I guess. So unless maybe this is my thought, maybe we're gonna suggest something more. But yeah, I'm nearly there.
Yeah, I mean, there was something going through my mind when I was listening. Like, I'm waiting for a hook, but then the realization comes that the vocal is the hook. So I think the most important thing is to not overcomplicate this. But I do have a couple of notes for you in terms of, you know, how to kind of improve one or two elements. And, you know, I really love the fact that I love tracks like this that are really dynamic. Like, they've got a lot of room, they have a lot of space, and, you know, you've got that real sense of, like, it's not overly loud. You know, it's got this really, really nice spacious element to it. It's very, like, I could imagine playing this and it welcoming people onto the dance floor. Like, it makes me want to get up and get on the floor. Like, it's that kind of record. Like, it's a beautiful record that way. I do think it maybe lacks a little bit in the low end. I was looking for maybe, like, not like, I'm not talking to the extent of, say, like a drum code kick or anything like that, but I was looking for maybe a little bit more from the kick. Because the bass line sits really nicely, but sometimes it just felt like the kick was there to kind of mark time rather than be like an impactful instrument in its own right. So you might want to look to reinforce that a little bit, maybe bring it up in the mix a little bit, add a little bit of extra warmth, drive, a little bit of low end to it, just to get it to really, like, in the periods later on in the track, it really would add momentum. I think that would be something that would really work. And of course, these things are all subjective as well. So, you know, you can feel free to, you know, say I'm full of shit and just completely ignore it. But also,
no, I'm taking my notes at the moment.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So yeah, all good. So basically, the other aspect is because I love the fact that you've used these kind of like West Africa kind of drums. In, you know, for fills and stuff like that. Absolutely. Only an audio nerd like me would know the exact contact library that it came from, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you know.
Dude, I'm that sad I can actually pick out, like, when I hear a track, I'm like, he's used Kick 11 from that sample pack. This is this is why I'm the worst person to go to a rave to, because that's just me. But ultimately, you know, it fits well. It fits really, really well. And you know, you're getting some love in the YouTube comments. You know, Ethos is saying it's a really nice track. And yeah, there you go. So for me, the fills work quite well. They maybe just sat up in the mix a little bit, so you might want to just bring them down, maybe like a dB or two. But also as well, they just felt a little bit dry. And I was looking for maybe not like huge cavernous reverb, but just a little short reverb. It doesn't need to be a lot, just to put it in its own space, and it would add to the impact, and it would smooth the entry and the exit, because sometimes they kind of come in a little bit, you know, a little bit suddenly and kind of leave very suddenly as well. So just a little bit of that would really help gel things, I think. And, you know, that would really, really improve matters. If you really wanted to, you know, go into it and kind of add what I would call like the sprinkles, like the finishing touches, you know, you could do, you know, 1 or 2 more little fills around, or, you know, say for example, like I'm a big fan of reverse reverbs on vocals. So take a section of the vocal, you know, run it through a long reverb, reverse it, and then use them as like little kind of like lead-ins to the vocal sections, or just little risers that you can use on their own. I find that really works to help, you know, introduce the next section, or even sort of lie to the listener about what's coming next, so you can kind of take it in a different direction. So little things like that make a huge difference. But I'm also keen to not have you overcomplicate it. Like we always say this in our track feedback sessions, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know, when you're in this state, it's like, just be very careful, be very, very deliberate about what you add, because you are 99% there. So that's one of the reasons why I selected the track for this evening, because it shows that even though you're very close to the finish line, there's always just another little level that you can get out of it. But it's a beautiful track, mate, and you should be very happy with it.
Thank you. So no other elements, just a little bit of spark and movement, and that's it. Pretty much. That's
it, as far as I'm concerned, dude. I mean, you've got a good thing going. The vocal is the lead instrument in the track, and you've done very well to make that the case. So know when you've got a good thing going, and because I've seen this happen so many times, where like, you know, my old one-to-one clients or even members, they tend to like, what's the old saying? Like they tend to play with sticks while Rome burns, basically, and they end up overcomplicating it, and they end up ruining what they had, which was perfect, because they wanted to make it more perfect. So sometimes it's also knowing what not to do, right? It's knowing sometimes you just got to leave that alone. So outside of those little areas, I would say that's it. But yeah, really great track, mate, and I'm really, really happy that you've brought it in. So thank you very much for your time, dude. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're very, very welcome.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Nice one, dude. Thank you, Dimitar. Amazing stuff. Great. Okay, so I'm just going to pick these out at random. We're going to go to Sean next. We're going to go to Musk, and we're going to have a little listen to this track called Found. And yeah, we'll have a little chat after we've had a listen, Sean, if that's all right, mate. Perfect. Here we go. nice. Another solid track. Very cool, mate. Very cool. How you doing, Sean? You all right, mate? I think you're on mute, just on you so you know.
Sorry.
Sorry, mate. No,
You hear me now?
Yeah, hear you now, mate. Hear you now. Good to see you, mate.
Yeah. So, mate.
Yeah, good stuff.
How are you doing?
Yeah, very well. I'm a lot better now I've heard that, mate. Be honest. Definitely. So, I'm gonna be that awkward person that answers a question with a question. Like, where do you feel like you're at with this right now? And listening back to it, do you feel like there's anything that you could improve?
Personally, well, this track that I sent to you is a bit old. It's like I made it kind of near enough like last year,
Mm-hmm.
and I've kind of got a bit better production wise. Anyway, however, I do think that like I've got releases out now. I've got a release on one label, a remix, and I've got a release coming out next month.
Mm-hmm.
In November. Sorry, but like I'm sending demos off to Anjuna Deep, but obviously I'm not getting on there. So I'm like, what is it? Is it, am I missing something in my productions? Like, I think this is track what I sent to him. So, am I about 80-90% there? Like, that's what I feel. I feel like my productions are good enough to be released. However, I don't have any momentum like on social media sites because I looked at I had a workshop with some guy called T Mango, and he said that labels look 3-dimensionally. So they look about like your music, your brand, and then your momentum. So I'm sending this music off to Ingenuity. So which one of these three am I not hitting with them?
Mm-hmm. No, you're totally right. Yeah.
Is it my brand? Is it my momentum? And that's where I am really, really at the minute.
Great.
Like I've got about 5 or 6 tracks which are finished. I've got about 4 remixes which I've been sending out to DJs. And if there's anybody that wants to listen to them remixes, I'd be more than happy to email them out to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just at that stage where I want a bigger push.
Yeah.
What's holding me back is kind of what I'm asking.
Yeah, sure. I think you've hit the nail on the head on pretty much everything there. And the good news is that all you really need is a strategy. So rather than, say, for example, like finishing a track, sending it out, this is like actually like it's great that you've asked this on this particular stream, because this is what I work with a lot with our AAA members, where they get to a certain stage like they are with just like you are at the moment, and it's like, well, what is it? Like, what's the next thing? What's the next step that I've got to take? Because I feel like you've got releases under your belt, but it's about driving all 3 of those things. It's very, very true. And how you do that is by, first and foremost, obviously writing good music. Me and Rory Palmer, who, we do the music marketing course. He used to work for Defected and, looked after Steve Lawler's socials and, a bit of a music marketing kind of genius, really. We always say that the number one thing that will move the needle for you is a big record. But also at the same time, if you've got a big record but you can't get it listened to by the right people, then how do you get it signed and how do you get the needle to move? So there's a little bit of like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg to it, really. But what we always advise, just very simply, is save up a real, what we would call like an arsenal of tracks. So if you've got 5 to 10 absolute nuclear level bangers.
Yeah, that's what I am trying to do. That's why I've got like these 5 or 6 tracks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And oftentimes when it comes to labels, especially you mentioned like Anjuna Deep, they're trying to predict trends like a year in advance, because sometimes these labels are, and I can tell you from previous having run my own label and about to, I'm, running 2 of my own new ones as well. Like sometimes you are signing records up to a year in advance. So it's what they perceive they need a year down the line. And it's very difficult to kind of second guess somebody else's taste, shall we say. I've always found with the members that have done well and ended up, on labels like, say, adjacent to and Unideep and in that area, the number one thing I think they're looking for these days is vocals. So,
vocals?
Yeah, they're looking for vocals because they're looking for that kind of, like, where, say, for example, and Unideep sort of sit, and yeah, they do release a lot of instrumental stuff as well. But if you've got a vocal and it's a good vocal and it can transfer with people and it's hooky, then that's going to be something that's going to be definitely, because there is a bit of a lack of good vocal tracks. So that's something I would definitely recommend. I mean, I'm literally recording a vocal for one of my tracks on Friday, and it's the first time I've ever used a vocalist.
Right.
So that's something to definitely bear in mind, and, do a little bit of networking around, maybe write some tracks with that in mind. And then it's just about, like you mentioned before, about, it's not social media is obviously a part of it. It has to be, like, it's just a reality now. However, It is also about how you build an audience for yourself and how you can talk to that audience. So, we always talk about how you can build up email lists, like just good, solid, old school, build up an email list, start emailing your fans. And you can do that by putting free stuff out on the likes of Bandcamp, or you can use stuff like Hyped in order to exchange an email address for a free download of, say, for example, like a remix of a classic track, something like that. And then that's when you start to build the momentum, and that's when you'll start to have all 3 of those wheels that you mentioned spinning at once.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of my ideas for these remixes is to, send them out to DJs, maybe try and get a couple of them to maybe play them, and then I'm going to use Hypedit to then, put. I think I've got like 4 remixes, so maybe I could do one every, say, 3 months. Yeah. So that's maybe a year's plan.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And you've hit upon the other thing is, like, have a release schedule and try and fill those gaps in. That's definitely the case. Definitely the case. So, it sounds like you're onto it, and you're also right by prioritizing sending to DJs before labels, because if you can get DJ support and you've got, say, video evidence before a track is signed of, like, I don't know, like, Hernan Cataneo playing one of your tracks in Argentina or something like that, then you probably wouldn't be surprised at how quickly labels come running when that happens, because they've got the promo right there. So they will always sign records that have got strong and verifiable DJ support before any other track that's just from somebody who's submitted a demo, basically.
Yeah.
So let's get on to the track itself. So that's really cool you're talking about that, mate, because I think it's a really good point to raise. Really enjoyed the track. I think because you mentioned it was mastered as well, right? You've mastered it.
Yeah, I've mastered that, yeah.
You've done well on the mastering side, mate. I've got to say, you've done pretty well with that. That's good. It's a good master. It's not overly loud. It's not too squashed dynamically speaking. I use that. I use that adapter. Plug it from. Oh, do you? Yeah. Do you use it to like AB your masters and stuff?
Yeah, it is really good tool to use. Yeah,
it's a very good tool. Very good tool. It's on everything for me. I use it across every stage of production, quite honestly. So really, really good on the mastering side of things. I think, so I'm bearing in mind that, a lot of what I'm about to say is probably going to be integrated into future productions. I really enjoyed it. I think it had a little bit of, how can I put it? It just took a bit of time for me for it to get going. And one of the things that I was really specifically yearning for, especially after the first break, after that first little mini break before the main one, see this one around here?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, would you just put a clap in, please? And get on with it. Do you know what I mean? I wanted that next level of momentum, just to really make it move. And I think there's room for some little rhythmic layers that you could add in. I mean, the shakers are good, and because I think that they sound like Shimmer Shake Strike to me.
Yes, they are. No way.
Yeah, mate, I told you I was a nerd. I said to Dimitar before, I can pick kicks out of sample packs from 10 years ago, mate. Terrible, mate.
We cannot fight anything from you, Paul.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just ruining my reputation on this public stream right now. So yeah, it's the shakers are great. I mean, I've got to thank Tim Green for that, because he was the guy who put me onto it during that masterclass we did during the pandemic. But yeah, I just wanted extra. I thought you could also get away with adding in, like, I think especially in the final third, like a little subtle like 909 ride, just to give it that extra little bit of edge, to really like deliver it really. Because the big thing that I would say is, after the main drop, which I think you do a good job of building up to, when it drops, it kind of goes back to doing what it did previously. Yeah. So you need to maybe possibly think about in future, for future productions, adding in some elements that really elevate the final third. So it really gives like a payoff. So it's like, we've spent 4 or 5 minutes building up to this point, and like it's just adding in that extra little bit of like, whether it's an extra hook, or it's a high string, or a different style of pad, or just another kind of couple of rhythmic layers, or any combination of those things, that can really help like give that payoff, and it makes everything worthwhile. It contextualizes everything that you've spent the last 4 or 5 minutes building up to, basically. So yeah, I would definitely look into that. Couple of little technical points. I love the way that the break kind of comes in, and I think the kick is maybe a little bit dominant, especially after you've took the low end out of it. I think you could take a little bit more low end out of it and just sit it down in the mix a little bit more, so it doesn't sort of stick out as much. So it's just it just smooths that kind of transition from the drums being fully into that breakdown, and it kind of, but I love what you did where you filtered it down. It was a really nice smooth transition, and I think you managed to open it up with the synths quite nicely as well. And it might be that, I think you've got room there to add one more hooky element, and I think you could, it could really like take everything to the next level. So, definitely, think about, adding in that like killer hook that kind of comes in that break, and then comes in for that final third, and then that's kind of the point of the exercise, if you know what I mean. The ARP's cool. Really like the way it floats over the top of everything. I do think as well, I think there's a little bit more to be done with that, in terms of, opening the filters out and opening the envelopes out a little bit more, and making it kind of breathe a little bit more. I think that could be quite a cool aspect. And one thing I do like to do as well is, like, I mean, you've probably heard my tracks, like, I do all sorts of weird shit to stuff like that. These little ARPs, I love to screw up with like background sound design. And, it was like about 10 years ago, I was working with Junkie XL, and Junkie really imparted on me that like no sound should be left naked. Like, everything can have a little bit of processing on it. So I think a little bit of processing on it would really like add like a real 2023 edge to it. Do you know what I mean? Because it is like a vintage sound, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, but you could add little things like little stutter plugins in the background. One of my favorites for that, on like the granular sort of glitch side of things, is Output Portal.
I've got that.
Mate, stick that on a send.
Right.
Send a little bit of it to Portal, and then pick out a couple of different presets, mate, and you'd be amazed at what comes out. Fantastic. I love having it on a send, because then I can send an experiment with 4 or 5 different other things. Yeah. Just to kind of see, well, what can I have? And then if something cool happens, then You know how to, because you're an Ableton guy, right?
No, I use Logic.
Use Logic. Okay, yeah. So one of the things you can do is you can basically like record it into another audio track if you want to print it, and then you can edit it and bring it in and, you know, dot it around and stuff like that. That can be quite cool. Or obviously you can use, you know, some of these stuff like, you know, audio hijack or rewind or any of these other things that kind of capture the audio as and when you're working. That can be quite a useful thing, quite a useful tool as well. And then basically resample it, and then you can, as I say, edit it, you know, pass it around the track, and it'll really add an interesting bit of ear candy to that harp, and it'll help take it to another level, and it just takes the perception of the whole track up another level as well. So, you know, there's little things you can do there. Finally, as well, I did notice that I really like the progression in the bass. I love the movement of it, sort of melodically speaking or harmonically speaking. Just watch the releases on your synth, because I was just sensing there was a little bit of an overlap and there was a little bit of sourness, you know, as it moves from one note to the other. Right. So you might want to have the synth, because it's a bass, you might want to have it in a legato mode, or just shorten the releases so it's a nice smooth transition between notes. And those things are so easy to overlook, but again, like, nerd over here notices these things and has to comment on them. But that's why this is why I do this for a living. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, all these little things add up to something big, mate. And it's a great track, and you've been getting a lot of love in the YouTube comments as well. You know, people basically like saying, where is it? You know, good flow and mix down. Kevin Bongworth, one of our members. So what's actually happening is that our AAA members are in the YouTube comments going, oh yeah, what's the outside world like? Let's see what these guys are up to, and actually offering feedback as well. So Kevin here says, this is nice and deep, perhaps a bit more ping-pongy type left to right on the effects here and there to create some more width. Otherwise, really like the arrangement and the sound selection. So it shows you, it's not just the feedback you get off me, it's the feedback off everybody else. So half the time, I'll be honest with you, the feedback from the other members is better than what I give you. Lupe says the track flows really nicely, it's smooth, progressive, and it makes me want to dance. There you go, you got a new fan there, mate. There you go, there's building momentum. Yeah, cool. Dan North says he likes the Vox Atmos. Yeah, it's great stuff. Yeah, really, really good. So yeah, you've impressed a lot of people tonight, mate. So really appreciate you bringing the track in, and a good overall conversation about, you know, what it takes to help your music get to where it needs to be in this day and age as well. So appreciate it, mate. Yeah.
Would you be able to like help with stuff like that then, all them different dimensions what I mentioned? Because it feels like what I said was pretty much on the mark. Like you're saying, like there's a couple of things in my production, so it's like it does sound like I'm 80-90% there, and then obviously just take it that further and then look at these, you know, the way a label looks at me and my brand.
100%. So we've spent most of this year doing like a really comprehensive marketing course with Rory and a lot of other people. So we've brought some experts in, and we've still got some people to come in. We've done everything from like contracts. We're going to do contracts soon, like what to look for in recording contracts, all the way through to, you know, understanding publishing, how to use ChatGPT to, you know, write your press release and your bio for you and all sorts, getting your press kit on point. Oh, dude, absolutely. I mean, anything to stop yourself from having to refer to yourself in the third person. I mean, Paul Nolan hates doing that, do you know what I mean? But it's everything, and we go through things like a fine-tooth comb, and, you know, we go through people's social media accounts and give advice and tips on like how to like improve the output, doing it in a way where it doesn't feel like it's overtaking the studio time, and just getting your whole, we call it the artist ecosystem, like getting everything on point. So getting like the conversation we just had about Bandcamp, like we truly believe Bandcamp needs to be the center of it all, to be honest, because once you've got that engaged fan base, that you don't have to, and this is an important thing, you don't have to spend huge amounts of money on things like Facebook ads and Instagram ads and TikTok and all this nonsense. You know, once you've got that email list, people love to talk about the death of email. I've yet to see it happen. You know, that's why you don't see me say much on social media these days, mate, because I've got a large email list of people who are interested in what I'm doing, so I can just speak directly to them. So it's about building all of that infrastructure up around you. So when a label sees your professional press kit, reads the biography that ChatGPT's written for you, and been able to see that you've got an ecosystem going and you've got that momentum, which is what you mentioned before, and you basically got everything in place to build a fan base, then they're more likely to invest in you. So you'll have an easier time getting tracks signed. And even then, you know, we've got entire masterclasses on this is how you get signed. This is how you actually do it. And even, you know, members are currently like in situations where they're like, I've just spoken to such and such like big name DJ and they've listened to me track and they really want to sign it, and I've not heard from them in a month. What do I do? You know, things like that. Like, so, you know, we advise on that. Obviously, I can use my network to do outreach to labels. As I mentioned before, we're starting a label as well. So there's lots of opportunities to take your the whole thing to the next level, but do it in a way where it's empowered, because you're part of a community that really, you know, is going through all of it together, side by side. So yeah, definitely, mate. We've got loads we can help you with on that one, mate. And you know, you're in a similar place to a lot of our members, really. So you know, it's a good parallel.
Yeah.
Excellent, nice one, Sean. Really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Lovely
thanks for that.
To see you again, mate.
Thank you.
No, you're very welcome. Thanks for bringing it in. Right, we're gonna do Gary's track last, because basically he's not on the call, so it'll be easier for him to kind of just run to the end. So we're gonna do Inger's track next, called Mumbling King, and we'll have a listen to that, and then we'll speak to Inger afterwards. Here we go. Very nice, Iner. Thank you for putting that in, dude, and thanks for taking the time to speak to me tonight.
Thank you.
All good. All good. So yeah, man, I think this is a really good track. This is a really good track. Like, I'll be honest, like, I'd selected the 5 and then I heard this and I was like, we're gonna have to do 6. We're just gonna have to do 6.
Opportunity.
Yeah, no, you're very welcome, mate. You're very welcome, especially when you bring stuff as good as this. Yeah, I really enjoyed it, mate. It's got great atmosphere. It's really interesting what you've done with the vocals, especially like the sort of the more female vocal. It's got this really nice haunting atmosphere, which is, it's kind of reminiscent, I think, of like almost like early Last Night on Earth. Like, it's got that kind of vibe to it. So really, really enjoyed that. I think the drums sound really solid. Low ends, good. Although I do think sometimes the sub bass is maybe a little bit dominant, and I'll explain why you might want to just sort of bring that down a dB or two. Is I'm thinking about club play. And what tends to happen, especially with the lower frequencies, if you can imagine a speaker cone moving in and out, when you've got long held basses like this, and this is actually something, we did a track feedback session a good while ago with Patrice Baumel. So Patrice came in and he actually sat for, I think it was nearly 6 hours listening to people's tracks and giving feedback. It was absolutely wild. And one of the things that, like, even me as an audio engineer with many years experience, I didn't get onto this, was when you've got long held basses like this, the cone tends to stick out. It tends to stick in one position. So what it does, it kind of unfairly doesn't allow the low end of the track to represent itself properly. So I always like to add a little bit of side chaining, not too much, not like Benny Benassi satisfaction, but just enough to give it a little bit of movement, and then keep it just a little bit lower in the mix. And it will, honestly, like, when you get into a club situation, it might sound a bit low compared to what you're used to mixing, but then you play it in a club and it's like, oh, because it just expands, it multiplies by about a factor of 10. So that's like one thing to definitely think about. The only other thing I have, and honestly, if you can reduce me to 2 pieces of minor feedback, you've done very well indeed, because I am, as you've probably already experienced this evening, extremely nitpicky. But I often say this to people, that if I'm nitpicking at this level, where you're thinking, why is he obsessing over like the decays of a bass line, it's because the track is already good and it's worth being nitpicky about. So the thing I would say is the lower, sort of more detuned, lower pitch vocal is a bit loud in the mix, and it needs to be brought down a little bit, because it felt like, especially in the break, it was dominating the more subtle elements, and you've got some lovely like textures and lovely atmospherics in there, and the vocal just felt like it was kind of coming over the top of it a little bit. So you might want to bring that down a little bit. Again, I'd probably advise maybe like 3-4 dB, something like that. And one thing I always maintain is you can solve 90% of your problems in production by either turning the volume down or using a filter. Like, you'd be amazed. You'd be amazed. So, you know, they're just 2 little things to bear in mind. I love the progression of the track. I thought the arrangement was really lovely. And I thought, on top of that, the way you brought some elements in, and that management and transition out of the break back into the main section was really, really well done. And just the new lead that come in that final third. I love what happens in these sessions, because sometimes you're talking about a concept with the previous person and the next track proves exactly what you were talking about. So as I was talking to Sean about his track, about having that extra little element that kind of takes it to the next level, your track has that lead that really, really does it. So, and again, that kind of goes back to what I was saying to Dimitar as well. Just these 2 little bits of feedback, and this track for me, I think, is essentially done. I think it's very, very close, and it really, really worked for me, dude. So you should be very proud of yourself, and I'm really glad I listened to this morning and decided to throw it in the session.
Yeah, cheers. Well, thank you very much for that feedback.
No, you're very welcome, mate. You're very welcome, and I look forward to hearing the finished version when it inevitably gets signed by somebody and we get a release. So thank you very much, dude.
Cheers.
Awesome. Great stuff. Great stuff. Okay, so Maro is up next. So we're going to have a listen to Mauro's track, Orpheus, and then we're going to have a little chat to Maro and see where we're at. So here we go. Very clever. Love that pitch down right at the end there, dude. Really cool. Thanks for bringing that in, Maro. I really appreciate it. think you might be on mute, mate. I'm just going to ask you to unmute. There
Thanks
you go.
to you.
No, you're very welcome, dude. And the pleasure is all mine, especially when you bring tracks like this in, dude. Really, really cool. I love the sound design. I love deep, trippy stuff like this. Like it's.
I was attracted by the melody that goes down and down and down and down.
Oh yeah, dude! It's just like falling into the void.
Yeah.
Absolutely loved it. Yeah, it's got so many great textures and so many like you've probably fit about an album's worth of ideas into about 4.5 minutes there. It's really impressive that you've managed to fit all that stuff in. It's really, really clever. In terms of like the feedback, because I could wax lyrical about the track all day. I think the number one thing for you to work on is your mix down skills. Because it just needs a bit of a better balance, like across the board. Like there's so much to love about it, but it feels a little bit claustrophobic at the moment, and I just feel like sometimes like this is where feedback sometimes gets a little bit frustrating, because this is the type of thing where I'd be like, can you just sit there and let me mix your track for you to show you what I mean? Do you know what I mean? Can we just sit together and I'll mix the track down and I can go through it point for point? But we would put this like in our group calls, like on the AAA, we would call this like, we've got this category which we say it's just a good mix down away. And that's exactly what it is for me. It's like some elements, like some of the synths earlier on, those transitional synths that sound like they should be in a Blade Runner score, quite frankly. They can be brought down and level a little bit, and just overall creating a sense of space. And then what happens is once you've created that space, the clarity comes. And then when the clarity comes, you get the impact. And honestly, like if this has got a proper mix down on it, like this does all kinds of stuff in a club. Like I've heard John Digweed play stuff like this for 20 odd years, and it wouldn't sound out of place. I saw him about 3 weeks ago in London, and this wouldn't sound out of place in some of his sets now, quite frankly. And I just think it's got huge potential. But as I say, the number one thing, and this is like a thing that's very common for a lot of artists at certain stages of development, the creative stuff is absolutely there. It's more the technical / artistic element of the mix down. So do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Should be more balanced, more.
Yeah, definitely. And it will just take a few iterations to get it to where you need it to be. And, you know, obviously there's plenty of stuff online, and, you know, we do a mixdown course and stuff as well that can help you with it as well. One of the things I would actually recommend, and I mean, yeah, it's an expense, but I would honestly, like, if mixdown is something that you really struggle with, I would honestly think about sending it to a mix engineer.
Mm-hmm.
And what you get back from a mix engineer, I mean,
Not a mastering engineer, a mixing engineer.
A mix down engineer specifically. A lot of artists use them. Like, artists either fall into one of two camps. So a lot of the bigger artists that I've worked with absolutely hate mix down. Like, they will actually run out of the studio if you even mention the word mix down. Their whole thing is
Mixing
creative.
Is a little like composition. So you give them the power to recompose your music.
To an extent, yeah. And often they hear things that you don't in your music. And it can be quite fascinating sometimes to hear what somebody else's interpretation it is. It's the same as mastering as well. But on the technicals, it can be really interesting to hear what somebody else does and how it can get to this high level, because I do believe that with a good mix down, this can be an incredibly high level record. Absolutely. And as I say, mixing sometimes doesn't come naturally to people. and it's a long process. I mean, I still feel like after, 15 years after I went to audio engineering college, I still feel like I'm learning about mixing every time I mix a track. So, it's that thing of going out to different people and getting a different look. We say this all the time to people when they get their work mastered or when they want to learn how to master their own stuff.
So you send the stems to a mixing engineer?
Yeah. And if you need a recommendation, I'm happy to recommend someone to you. Who would do it for a very, very competitive rate, and he's releasing on record labels like Bedrock himself, but he does a lot of mixing for a lot of other artists as well, and he's very, very good. So that's something definitely to consider. Again, just as getting a bit of a template in terms of, oh, this is what my music can sound like when it's mixed to this level. And then it's all about learning to close that gap. A lot of artists still prefer to work with a mix engineer, but what they'll do is they'll get the tracks as far along as they possibly can before sending, so it makes the whole process easier. But genuinely, Maro, dude, like this track is like, if I get a fully mixed version of this, I'm playing this out in clubs. Next set of gigs
Thank
I've
you
got.
for your words.
No, you're very welcome, dude. And I don't say things like this lightly at all. So it's you can hear the amount of like love, care, and attention you've put into it. So
Yeah,
I'm very impressed. Yeah, definitely. I'm very impressed, dude. Very impressed.
Thank you.
You're very, very welcome, dude. Thank you. Thanks, Maro. Great stuff. Great stuff. Okay. Moon Motel, Abraham, you are up, my friend. So, hopefully he can hear us because his camera's off. I think he might actually be at work. So, we've probably busted him while he's at work.
I'm here.
Here he is.
I'm
Here he is.
still listening. Yeah.
Good stuff,
And
dude.
I'm working. You busted me.
Yeah, sorry, dude. We'll take this. We'll cut this
Okay.
part of the stream off so you don't get fired. It's fine.
Thanks.
Great stuff. All right, cool. So should we have a little listen to the track and then we'll talk about it in a minute? Here we go. Oh, you've been threatening this for a while, haven't you, Abraham? And you've not disappointed, have you?
I was trying, buddy.
It sounded like it as well, dude. You've done really well there. I really enjoyed that.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. So yeah, I mean, good energy in the track all the way through, really solid, lovely transitions. And I love the fact that like even like the last minute you're still throwing new ideas into the mix. Like it just kept my interest all the way through and just had that energy and maintained that energy all the way through. And it's a difficult thing to do, dude. So you've done really well on that score. Really well done.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. And then on top of that, you know, just the entire contour of it, just very, very cool. Just how you've arranged it, how you've put it together, really, really cool. I love the lead and the pad and in the break as well. That really, really helped. So just getting on to the more constructive parts of the feedback then. Just right at the beginning, like the pad that or the string that's right on the top, just kind of sat. It was just a little harsh at the beginning, and just kind of felt like you could do with a little bit of softening, whether it be like a low pass filter and it could kind of come up, you know, through a filter, or it could be just slightly lower volume, or it could be softened tonally with like maybe a little more reverb. Just a little bit of harshness there for me. Another point that I would like to make is on the kick. So the kick has got good energy and it's got, you know, it's got a good grunt to it, like all the way through. For me, it just sounded a little boxy and maybe needs a little bit more click to it, something a little bit more percussive. So you might want to just play with the mix on it a little bit, try and bring the transients out a little bit, maybe even layer it with another sort of very small click sample, just to get it to really kind of cut through the mix and just make it sound a little less kind of, you know, a little less kind of restricted, I would say. I love the quirkiness of the clap. Just after a while, it starts to get a little bit fatiguing. You know, it's got that kind of like really sort of late / sort of almost like kind of a wet kind of sound. And I just felt like you could layer it with something maybe a little bit more, what I would say, traditional. Maybe like an 808 clap or something a little more hand clappy, if you will. And then just have that sort of more quirky clap, if you would call it that, just as a kind of a slightly lower layer. So you've got something solid that just hits the foundation on the 2 and the 4. And then you've got that little texture that kind of wraps around it. And it just creates a bit of space, because it also felt like it was trying to do the job of like 2 samples, if you will. It was also taking up a little bit of space in the mix. So it could just be kind of dropped down a little bit and layered with something else. And then everything will sit and then the whole thing will lock together. That would be quite cool. And just thinking if there's anything else. Yes, just a very, very slight arrangement thing where as the outro's beginning, just around this section, that sort of like there's a sound, there's like a synth pad kind of sound or like a synth lead kind of sound that comes back in. And
from the beginning,
yeah, so it kind of gave me an impression that, we're heading into another kind of build up, if you know what I mean. So it might just be worth experimenting with listening to it without that. So it's a very clear indication, that, you know, the outro's beginning, because that might make it a little bit difficult from like a DJ mixing perspective, where there's other musical elements in and around. So again, that's a subjective thing. You might play around with it and think, well, that hasn't got enough energy for me, I might just keep it. You know, just play around with it. But really, really good stuff. And again, I would put that into the category similar to Maro's, where it's like just like a bit of refinement and a bit of a mix down. You know, another pass at the mix down will absolutely send this to another level, dude. It's impressive work.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome, dude. And glad we finally got to do this after threatening it for so long.
I appreciate you, buddy. And shout out to my wife who's listening. Yeah, my wife's listening, and it's our 14-year anniversary.
Oh, and, no way.
She is my, And she is my mixing partner and DJing, and my ears in the studio. I'm engineering, and she's telling me up or down if it's good or bad, or I should chuck it. So big thanks to her for all her help.
So congratulations on making it 14 years without strangling each other. Maybe it didn't happen. And
yeah,
you know,
we're doing a show on Saturday. So.
Oh, phenomenal, dude! Like, congratulations!
Yeah.
Like, you two are literally like relationship goals. You know, like those memes where it's like, you know, the guy sending text to the girl, and the girl's like, "Well, your snare sounds like shit."
Yep. So yeah, I appreciate you, Paul, and the whole group. I've enjoyed everything.
Thank you very
I'm
much.
listening
dude.
while I'm working. So
I really appreciate that.
Thanks,
taking
everybody.
the time at the work they do. Thanks very much, and we shall convene somewhere in the States when I'm over.
That's right.
Perfect. Great
Thanks, everybody.
stuff. Great tracks tonight. You're a talented bunch. I shouldn't say that like I sound surprised. So, bringing us home is going to be Gary Hardcastle. So, funny enough, Gary is somebody who I actually have a bit of history with. Back in the days when I used to work for a certain audio engineering college, Gary took one of my courses in electronic music production. They shall remain nameless. So it's great to see Gary pop back up. And I thought we'd play this as the final track. Unfortunately, Gary's not on the call. Doesn't look like he's seen the emails that we sent today. All good, mate. We'll talk about this. We'll have a listen. This happens all the time as well, where people can't make it and we give feedback anyway. So here we go. Here's Gary's. I was going to say Gary's Shiny Disco Balls, but that sounds really wrong. So anyway, here's the track. I'm going to shut up before I embarrass myself any further. I think that's quite a good way of finishing off the evening, rounding things off there with Gary. So, yeah, shame you couldn't be on the call, Gary, because it'd be great to speak to you. However, really enjoyed that. I think it's really, really cool. It's got a really cool vibe to it. I think the main thing that holds it back is just on the level side of things. The bass is great. I really love the bass. I love the movement of it. I love how it works with the drums. It's just a little bit too loud. And it's kind of overwhelming, specifically the kick, but the drums in general. So you could solve a lot of problems in this track just by turning down the bass ARP by 3 to maybe, I would say, 5 dB, something like that at the absolute most. Just in that range, I'd say minimum 3. You'll be able to play around with it and get it to where you need it to be. So yeah, so really, really cool on that level. The bass is great, as I say, just kind of overwhelms things a little bit. The other aspect as well is the sort of one of the main hi-hats is quite harsh. So I would pinpoint that you'll probably want to use a high-pass filter. If you haven't already, you might want to bring it up a little bit. I'd say bring it up to anywhere around like 1,000 hertz, something like that. But then what you might want to do is just take an EQ at around 3,000 to 5,000 hertz, maybe around 6,000, something like that, in that range, and just put a little dent in it. Just take some of the harshness out of it, scoop it out a little bit, and then if you feel the need to bring the high-pass filter up a little bit more, you can do. Because, again, it's covering a lot of ground because the hi-hat itself is quite noise-based. And, again, noise covers the entire spectrum of what you can hear. So you have to be a bit careful with it. So that's one aspect. And I think that hi-hat is accounting for the other issue that I was going to point out, where when some of the higher-end percussion comes in, like tambourines, for example, those sort of 16th note shakery type sounds, there's a lot in the top end. Like, I would say probably like as far as 7.5 to 10K. It's quite piercing. So once you bring that mid hi-hat down a little bit and sort of scoop some of the harshness out of it, roll off some of the lower end, you've got, a little bit of room there to kind of bring down some of the harshness, because it's the middle hi-hat that's probably pushing the higher frequencies, because you've got to try and get it to sit on top. So it's one of those little things that you can just, help to bring down. Again, it's just taking the heat out of things a little bit. Think about it. You're just taking the heat out of the low end a little bit so the drums can groove. You're taking the heat out of that big hi-hat, which does still drive things forward quite nicely, but just getting it to sit and not have it take up too much space. And then those details in the higher end percussion and stuff can really sort of come down, and then the track's more spacious and it can breathe and it can move. And then because you've used the cooler parts of the original vocal, you can really, let that shine and let the whole thing groove, and all of a sudden the whole thing settles down, locks together, and it goes to another level. So great work. Glad to see you still at it after all this time, mate, and you're still making tracks. Really, really lovely. And thank you for sending that in, dude. It was really lovely to listen to your music. So, guys, that's going to do it. We've done our 6 tracks, and hopefully everyone's enjoyed, whether you're watching on YouTube or you've participated in the call, you've enjoyed this little taster of what it's like to be an MYT AAA member. So, just as a final thing, obviously, we are still 50% off at the moment for 6 and 12-month memberships. So you can get that for either £120 or £240 respectively. That's on until the end of the month. So if you feel like you'll benefit from these types of sessions, 20 odd courses that we've got on the platform, guest people coming in, like again Tim Green, like Patrice Baumel, we've got a load of those arranged for the near future, and you need help with your music in any way, shape or form, we're here for you. It's a great community. Like I said, we're opening a record label shortly as well, exclusively just for MYT members, called Emergent Properties, and we're here for you, basically. So yeah, I want to thank everyone who's put tracks in. I really, really appreciate it, including a few people asking in the comments about, you know, wanting to drop one in and things like that. Honestly, like, we'll possibly do something like this again in the future. And, you know, sorry to those who didn't quite get their tracks in time, who sent me emails and stuff. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you to Dimitar, thanks to Sean, thanks to Iner, thanks to Abe, thanks to Maro. Fantastic session, guys. Really, really appreciate it. And yeah, much love to you all. And yeah, we shall be back soon on MYT, and there it is. There's the link in the bottom if you should need it. And yeah, looking forward to seeing some of you in the members area, and looking to see some of you out and about as well. So yeah, much love, guys. Take it easy. See you soon. Bye for now.